As he learned from these things, from these experiences. It's like the rest of us. We're all human. He makes mistakes just like we do.
You learn to respect it and just, man, this guy's pretty impressive, obviously, at what he's doing. And he's changing the game from the road racing standpoint.
And that's all you can do if you're running 10th, is put yourself in a position that if something happens in front of you, you're there to take advantage of it.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams, and there's a lot to kind of decompress from after the race this past weekend at Kansas. I guess I'll start with the most breaking news as of the time that we're recording this podcast, which is late on Wednesday afternoon. Carson Hocevar fined $50,000 for peeling out and trying to get his car to take off while the safety workers were around him at Kansas. And Carson's not a playoff driver. He didn't particularly play a huge role in the race, but I think it's significant because it's Carson and we've been there before, and he continues to kind of have things that put him on the radar when maybe he shouldn't be on the radar. I don't know what his mindset is. I haven't seen any comments from Carson or from Spire or from any of that at the time, again, that we were recording this, which was Wednesday afternoon. But I think, look, I'm the last person to judge, right? I'm super fiery. My mouth gets me in trouble a lot, has since I was a child. So it's tough for me to quote unquote judge him. But I do think that one of the things you learn with age is how to kind of control a little bit more those moments, have fewer of them, how to step away when you're in those moments. And I think he's incredibly talented. I think he really could be the next big superstar in the sport, but he's kind of got to get past that before he can do that. Speaking of fiery, the end of the race, bearing the lead a little bit, but it is a little bit older news. Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Bubba Wallace is going at it crazy in the final couple of laps, and all the Toyota drivers mixing it up allows a Chevy driver to get to victory lane, which I think is like the worst nightmare, that you three are battling hard, you all bump off each other, you all make things happen, and then here comes another manufacturer and wins. Good on Chase. He was not the greatest car all day. He was a good car, but not the best car by any stretch of the imagination. But boy, was he good on that final green white checker on the final couple of laps. He was able to pass a bunch of cars and to get to a victory lane. Now he's on to the third round of the playoffs, while the Toyota drivers are all trying to figure out, how can they get where they want to be without taking each other out at the same time. So can't wait to talk about those things with our crew chief, Chris Carrier. My guest this week is Austin Dillon. Austin is a great friend of the podcast. He comes on quite a bit. And it was really interesting to talk to him about what the mindset is of somebody who's not in the playoffs, what a non-playoff driver is going through right now, and what's going through his head. So great conversation as always with Austin, and we will share that with you in a few minutes, but let's get going. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who also happens to be the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Chase Elliott was out front when it mattered the most and moves on to round 3 of the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Toyota teammates got tangled up in the final laps, helping Elliott sneak by for that win. So, if you are Toyota Gazoo Racing today, what are you telling your drivers?
I'm not really sure what I'd be telling them. I know what I think. It reminds me of watching the last 2 Green Bay Packer games, and they figured out, the Toyota teams looked like the Packers figuring out how to mess up a good thing. I would say, guys, we got to work better together here. Now, you got to remember, those are still 2, 3, whatever they are, 2, 3, 4 individual drivers who are racing for their own championship and for their own success. They kind of like, when it comes right down to it, and they're trying, I got to get ahead of this guy, and I got to squeeze him up to the wall, I got to push him down here, I got to bump him, they're looking for, how can I win this race? because if I win this race, let's face it, in this time of year, especially during championship chase, it means a lot. It pays a lot of dividends. So their priority is not, okay, I've got to make sure I make a Toyota win, and it might mean I run third or fourth. That's not really what they're thinking. They're like, how can I win the race and not mess up a Toyota driver, another Toyota driver? So they didn't quite do that.
Does this put to bed the idea that Denny Hamlin will prioritize 2311 over Joe Gibbs Racing in any instance? Because, I mean, he basically just gently moved his driver who drives for him and then got a very nice "you're number one, thank you, boss" from his driver. I mean, this puts that all to bed, right? We're not worried about Denny Hamlin choosing 2311 over Joe Gibbs Racing.
Heather, anybody who watches the Cup races and who pays attention to not only Denny Hamlin, but all the other drivers who are at least competitive in each race, which is a lot of them, but watches Denny and knows about his career and has paid attention to how he races and the success that he has. I don't see how you can actually think that, like, oh, he's trying to help Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick and Riley Herbst more than he's racing for Joe Gibbs. I mean, come on. That's now, sure, he's human, and he's probably looking around, and during caution periods or during lulls when he can, he's looking around thinking, okay, how's my three cars running? How's 2311 running? And yeah, I own those things. I got a personal and financial stake in it. So he's interested about it. He cares about it. He wants them to do well. I don't think he's going to wreck them intentionally. I don't think he's going to wreck anybody intentionally. Right. So I just think
except for maybe Ty Gibbs might disagree with that.
Well, possibly, but that tells you there he doesn't. When Denny makes choices about what he's doing, he doesn't see Toyota, Chevrolet, teammate, not teammate, red, white, or blue, or whatever. He races against everybody in the field. And I think he races every one of them, as close to the same as anybody could. I think the things in the last 2 or 3 races have proven that. Just like you talked about with Ty Gibbs, that's the owner's grandson and a teammate and a very good driver. And he's got a stake in that too, but he felt like, hey, I need to move this kid. He needs to learn a lesson here. He's holding me, and he's also holding Christopher Bell up at New Hampshire, and we need to get him out of the way so we can go on and do business. Yeah. So I don't know. It was an exciting race. I'm sure Chase Elliott. I mean, I could hear the bell at the the fire hall, the pool hall in Dawsonville, Georgia, all the way where I was at in Abingdon, Virginia. So good day for him. A lot of people say, well, he backed into it. The thing about it was he was close enough to take advantage.
He was not the fastest car all day, but on that final green-white checker, he absolutely had the best car and the best tires and all that kind of stuff. Yep. And that's all you can do if you're running 10th, is put yourself in a position that if something happens in front of you, you're there to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
They don't pay, the check doesn't pay any less.
Nope. Nope.
Whether
Points
you
are no
take
less.
advantage of the people in front of you wrecking, or there's a rain delay, or whatever, or you lead 499 of the 500 laps. The check cash is the exact same way every time.
Every time. And he did all he could. They stayed with it. Kudos to his crew chief for making the decision, and I'm sure Chase was part of that too and went along with it. His pit crew did a good job getting him in and out of there. They put themselves in a position to where, okay, if somebody else messes up just a little bit, we're going to pounce on this thing. And when that happened, he drove that thing like he had stole it and was running from the bank. So kudos to them. Chevrolet needed that win. Chase Elliott's team needed that win. Hendrick Racing needed that win. They take it. They're not going to put an asterisk beside it and say, well, we probably wouldn't have won if. No, they won the race. It took a checker, they took a trophy, they took the money. Pow, it's over with. He stamped his ticket to the next round. He
did indeed. So, non-playoff driver making a little headlines this week. Carson Hocevar gets fined $50,000 for safety violation after NASCAR said he kind of spun his wheels and, I don't know, put safety workers in jeopardy when he was on the apron during a caution. In and of itself, I mean, it is what it is, but Hocevar's been kind of keeping a low profile recently, but now he's back on the radar again.
Carson. I mean, how many times have we said this, like broken record? Extremely talented young individual. Got more raw ability, raw talent in that much of his end of his finger than most people would ever dream of having. Not only at race driving, but anything. And, you know, he's a fiery attitude inside the race car. He does amazing things with the race car. He's a fast driver. He has become the lead Spire car driver every week. They look to him. He's become a guy that everybody now expects to run at least in the top 10 or 12. You know, if he doesn't, he's having a bad day. Got a great future in front of him. Very likable guy.
Great with the fans.
Great with the fans. Has everything going for him. But he's got to, I don't know how else to say it. He's got to grow up.
Yeah.
He's got to grow up. I mean, he's in big boy sports right now. And especially when any type of safety work, the safety workers are people that are trying to help you. They're trying to help everybody. And yeah, most of the time they get to the cars, yeah, the guy might be a little woozy, or he might be a little mad, or he might have a little bruise or something like that, but it's okay, gets along. But you know, there are those times when those safety workers are the people who make a bad thing, a really bad thing, keep from going really bad, and they're the ones that make it okay.
Right.
They have a big responsibility.
And I don't know that Carson necessarily was like, I mean, he was frustrated. You could tell a little bit from the in-car audio.
Right.
I don't think that it was pointed at them, but I think it's just the lack of awareness that they're around, and that you have to keep your eye out for them and their safety as well as your own.
Right.
I think that's the issue. And he was mad and he was frustrated. I think that's why he spun his tires, because you could hear the tires in the HBO cameras. You can hear them spin, and you hear him say, "What are they doing?" Like, I don't think that he even realized that the cars were around him at the time. Mm-hmm. But you have to be, and if that's his spotter telling him, or him just being aware, like, you just have to be aware that the safety workers are there.
I don't think, this is not, there doesn't need to be any campaign now of like, oh, we hate Carson Hocevar, he's an idiot. None of that kind of stuff. We don't need to start throwing arrows at him. We don't need to burn him at the stake or anything like that, or run him off from racing. No, they fined him. NASCAR made a decision. They put a punishment out there. They're going to keep, and the thing is now is like, okay, you've got a little fire cat here who has a huge future in this sport, and he's going to entertain a lot of people with his driving ability. Okay, that's what this sport's about. It's entertainment. We love watching drivers who you can sit there and watch and say, man, look what he's doing with that car. He's running it on the edge. He's dead sideways. He's running, you know, all this stuff, and it's like it's nothing. Well, that's Carson Hocevar. The thing is, what NASCAR will watch, and I think what we have to watch as spectators and people who are involved in the sport, is like, okay, does he learn from these things, from these experiences? It's like the rest of us. We're all human. He makes mistakes just like we do. We make mistakes just like he does and everybody else. It's got to be a deal where he's got to show some learning about this, and some improvement, and some care about the things, and not let these things happen. Be cognizant of the things around you. Not just like, oh, I got to step on the gas wide open. You got to be cognizant of things around you, and not do things that endanger or infringe on somebody else's safety, you know, and their meaning in the sport.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the Roval is the cutoff for round 2 of the playoffs. Which drivers should be worried, and what can we expect at the Roval? Well,
you gotta look at. Heather, a lot of things can happen here. The Roval is a place where a lot of the unknowns, a lot of the things can happen, and they can happen at any minute, all the way through the race till the checkered flag falls. And I don't know. I had to look at I need to look
Well,
at the
so
points.
here's the standings.
Okay.
Joey Logano is right above the cut line. Then below him is Ross, Bubba, Tyler, Reddick, and losing the fourth driver here. I've lost who the fourth driver is. Tyler Reddick and Austin Cindric. So those are the four below are Ross, Bubba,
Wow.
Tyler, Austin Cindric, with Joey above the cut line.
Well, of that crowd, I would say that Joey Logano is probably the weakest road racer. I would think.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think he's probably the weakest road racer.
But he's in the catbird seat. He's the first
He's
driver
the
in right
first
now.
one, so that is a plus minus for him. And man, after that, you know, I guess Bubba may be the next weakest road racer of the crowd.
But he's actually been better on the road course
He
races this year
has.
than Tyler Reddick has been.
But you look at Ross and Austin Cindric.
Yeah.
He's down there in the bottom, but he's the best road racer.
And the
he's got a
problem-
good chance to win.
And the problem with those guys, though, is that they're almost going to have to win, because you look at, other than Joey, the guys above the cut line, and Denny, who's pretty far above the cut line, he's fourth in points. Everyone else, they're good road course racers. You're talking about Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, and you look at them and you're like, I don't see guys that are going to make mistakes. Chase Briscoe on the road course.
No,
I mean,
those are all good road
unless they
racers.
get caught up in a mess, a crash super early, because they are on the good side.
I understand.
I feel like if you're anyone but maybe Ross, who's the first car out, you have to approach this race as if you have to win it.
I think what you're saying, Ross is probably going to have his eye really close on Joey Logano to see how he's doing and be, okay, am I far enough ahead of Joey Logano, or is something happening, or what? How am I going to be able to pass him and get me in? But he's also got to worry about three behind him that may win the race and get in. Let's face it now, Austin Cindric's capable.
Sure he is.
Very
Tyler Reddick is capable.
Tyler Reddick is capable, and so is Ross Chastain is capable. So this sounds to me like it's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be a pressure-packed. The crew chiefs and the engineers, the drivers aren't going to be able to keep up with this racing in their head. They're going to get real confused. They're going to rely on their crew chiefs and the engineers of calculating up, okay, so-and-so's going to do this and so-and-so's going to do that. And the pit strategy is going to be all over the board. And there's going to be damage to these cars. I guarantee you playoff cars will have damage. And that's going to play a factor, because the drivers, the spotters, are going to have to help the crew chiefs, from their perspective, to say, oh, it's okay, I just got in the wall, I just rubbed this there's nothing wrong, or, hey, it's rubbing the tire, or I've got a problem here, I mashed the nose in, and now the water temperature is going up, and the brake ducts are closed up a little bit, my brakes are getting hot, so on and so forth. There's a lot going on in this race, and this.
And by the way, a bunch of drivers that have a chance to win that aren't in the playoffs. I mean, you start with SVG, but you've got AJ Allmendinger, who's also got a couple of wins at the Roval and dominated the Xfinity Series Roval races for a long time.
That's right.
I mean, there's a lot of factors.
There's a lot of factors going on, and there's going to be a lot of people on a lot of different agendas and playing, and that will affect the pit strategies. Some of these guys are like who you just talked about. They're going to roll the dice. They're going to say, look, what do we got to lose? Yeah. What difference does it make if I run 5th or 25th? If I win the race, it's going to make my season. A lot of people are going to have that mindset, and they're going to, whether they're in the playoffs or not, if they're not in the playoffs, they're going to say, I don't care about them guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, because you can look at, beyond the two obvious ones, you can look at a Michael McDowell or a Justin Haley, who are both really good road course racers.
Chase Briscoe, you mentioned, is a good road racer.
But he's in the playoffs. But there some of these playoff drivers that have, or non-playoff drivers that have 0 to lose by going for it. Todd Gilliland is another example. Really good road course racer.
Yeah. Kyle Busch.
stay out when everybody else pits, or pit when everybody else stays out, and totally
Absolutely.
turn the race on its ear.
Absolutely. That is a hard road course. There's a lot going on too. I'm learning this because the Truck Series is going to the Roval for the first time this year, this week.
So I want to ask you a question about that, because it was kind of my next question. I think you're headed down this road.
Okay.
When you're setting up for this, do you set up for the road course and grit your teeth through the turns 3 and 4, or are you trying to find balance in both? How are you setting up?
We're approaching you have to respect the oval turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, okay? Because it's got a lot of banking. You're not going through there as fast as you do when you run the whole oval. You know, when you come out of the infield and go into the infield, come in and out of the infield, you're cutting off a lot of the straightaway speed, and you're coming back on the racetrack, like in turn 1, you're coming back on the racetrack probably about 50 to 55 mile an hour. You know, you're really slow, and you're already in turn 1. Turn 3 and 4 a little more. But turn 3 and 4 is still going to be the faster corner because you've got more speed coming out of the chicane back there. You still got to respect how much your chassis, how much your truck is going to travel. So you have to have, we have to make sure we got stiff enough springs in the back, we got stiff enough stuff in the front too, to keep the truck off the ground, to keep it, literally to keep it from eating up the racetrack. Now, once we get into the infield section, the technical section, which is basically road course 101. You got lefts, you got rights, you got a little bit of uphill and downhill, a little bit, very flat, mostly pretty narrow, hard, technical stuff. You want all the grip you can, so the real stiff springs are like an enemy to that. So we've had to find what we think. I can tell you a better answer about Thursday about 5 o'clock. Friday about 5 o'clock.
After practice.
After a race probably. And
that's right, you race in the afternoon.
We race at 3:30 on Friday, and I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be a great day, and I'm really excited about it. But it is difficult. There's some hard decisions there to make. The common opinions about the infield part of the track is that you're mostly a little bit too loose around the left-handers and a little bit too tight, front end too tight, sliding the wheels around the right-handers. So we've kind of made some things go that would maybe favor both a little bit, but you still got to get through those chicanes, and the chicanes are different. The backstretch is a left, right, really another right, or one long right, and then a left onto the racetrack. The first one is a really hard left and a really hard right and a big curb, okay? Getting back on the racetrack's not so hard. You come up to speed through 3 and 4. Coming out of turn 4 onto the front straightaway, you've got a chicane going into the infield, okay, or before you get to start-finish line, and it's basically just a real hard right and a real hard left with big bumps, big turtles, or whatever they call them, on both sides. And if you cut it too quick, you can easily go off the racetrack and have to do a penalty. Then the one coming back on the racetrack in turn 1 is like probably, it looked to me like about a 240-degree turn that's around a sharp edge in the wall. It's really weird looking. And last year, in the 2 races last year, people were doing everything, through that corner right there, coming back onto the track, back onto the NASCAR oval in turn 1. And it's really slippery. You go in there, you try to turn it a lot, it'll slide, and you get in the gas and the back end. So Parker told me, he said, just figure on doing road race 101, make sure it stays off the ground, going through NASCAR 3 and 4, which is really bumpy. He said, other than that, it's like driving down the interstate, that there's no handling issues. But he said, then the rest of it, to try to figure out, okay, how to balance the loose corners to the tight corners and the rights to the lefts and all that, he said, that's up to me. So we're going to see what happens. You got to have good brakes. You can't tear up your transmission. It's hard on all the driveline parts. It's hard on the motor. If you over-rev too much, you can overheat very easily if you're not careful. It's hard on everything. So it's this type of road racing is a task. And it's going to be a task for those teams course, they should be about already done by now, and loading up their stuff pretty soon. But I guarantee you there's a lot of, their fuel mileage is going to be something else. Tire mileage and fuel mileage is going to be a mixture. That's what I say, you're going to see a lot of different pit strategies. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be frustrating fun, but it'll be a blast. I think all weekend you're going to see some good road racing.
I guess we'll start with, we've got, what, 5 races left in the season. Kind of what's the goal for you and your team to kind of finish out the season?
Just solid runs. You know, we're trying to learn something for next year. Do a better job of executing from qualifying to practice. I think we've been qualifying better, which is nice, but we haven't done a very good job going into the race of hitting our balance. Yesterday was really rough. We ended up clawing back, getting a little better before we got in that final wreck, but just trying to learn for next year so we can start out 2026 way faster than we did 25. And, you know, just build on some of the positive things that we've done this year and just try and build our notebook a little better for next year.
How hard is that to, because I've talked to a lot of drivers and different people in the garage about qualifying is so important. You need to be up front. So you put a lot into, you know, qualifying, but then carrying that speed over to the race and making what you did translate. How hard is that? Because, I mean, they're kind of two different concepts.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough. You know, you've got to be aggressive in qualifying and know that the grip level is going to be there. Trust it. I think that's something that we've done a better job. At least I have, trusting my guys and making the right call going into qualifying. From a race standpoint, you have to have a car that can drive all over the track and be good in traffic. And that ties to qualifying. Traffic does, because you have cleaner air up front. So, you know, you try and get all those things worked out before you get to the track. And I think practice plays into qualifying. So every bit of it matters in the sport because it's such a tight window that you're working in every week.
So this week is the Roval. It's kind of a home race for everyone. I know you guys are a little bit further out from Charlotte, but still super close to home.
Yeah.
What's this weekend like for you to be able to like sleep in your own bed and be home and all that kind of stuff?
It's definitely not to be home, be able to hang out with my kids. Be in the simulator a little more this week, being a road race, just a lot of different turns that you got to navigate. The new configuration last year changed some things. But I'm excited to get there. Always, you know, road courses create opportunities, and I've gotten better at them over the years and kind of enjoy changing it up. You know, you get to go to ovals quite a bit. So little road race thrown in the middle of the season or the playoffs is going to be fun. It's going to be hard to beat SVG, though. The guy's been impressive.
He has been. I want to talk about that in a second, but first I want to ask you, how challenging is the Roval compared to other road courses? Do you set up your car for the road course part? Do you and grit your teeth on the oval part, or vice versa? How do you set this up?
Yeah, I think that you look toward the road course part and kind of, like you said, grit your teeth through turns 3 and 4 of the big track. But you're just trying to find a good balance. That place has a lot of different turns, some sharp turns. I think you need a car that is just maneuverable and allows you to do average at everything, so you can come up with a good lap time.
You mentioned SVG. He has been really not even unbeatable, but really, like, it seems like everybody's competing for second place. When a guy is that dominant in any genre or at any track, is that good for the sport to have somebody that's that dominant?
Well, I think you learn to respect it and just, man, this guy's pretty impressive, obviously, at what he's doing. And he's changing the game from the road racing standpoint. And he's got it figured out. So you just tip your hat and go to work and try and put the pressure on him when you can. I think the whole field's trying to figure it out right now, and in hopes that we can at least give him some competition out there.
I know that part of being successful on your level is thinking that you can be the absolute best there is out there. So how hard does it push the rest of you guys? You kind of touched on it, but how hard does that push you to want to be able to do what he does?
It definitely makes you scratch your head and figure, like, wow, how is it that good? But then you start to study what he's doing and understand, what he's doing with the car, and try and take those things and do the things that you feel like you can do in the seat, to mimic it, or, do what you do well, and take a little piece of him, and try and get close enough that way.
For my final thought today, let's talk a little bit about this kind of narrative that has kind of evolved. And I've talked about this before, but it's something I'm really passionate about the good old days of NASCAR. 51 years old. I have seen a lot of racing in my time and enjoyed it. Enjoyed every race I've ever been to, maybe except for one. But that had more to do with who won as opposed to, the race itself. It was good, but the talent and the racing now is better. It just is. The cars are more even. It's not like Richard Petty just going out there and dominating, or Darrell Waltrip, just because their car is just 1,000 times better. We're not at Bristol with 5 cars on the lead lap, or 2 cars on the lead lap, or at Charlotte with 8 cars on the lead lap. And one of the things people always say to me is, back in the day, there was racing all around the track. And I think at the end of the Gen 6 car, we got away from that a little bit. But I think right now there is racing all over the track, like for position, like just if you want to know how intense the racing is back in the pack, dial up one of those Max cameras, pick a mid-pack driver for that race, and just watch them. Watch how many cars they pass. Watch what happens. Is passing at the front more difficult? Yes, but passing at the front should be more difficult as far as I'm concerned. You should have a harder time passing the leader than you did passing a guy for 20th. I just think that that's the way it should be. That driver should be better, his car should be better, and it should be more difficult. So, but I know we all have our attachments and our nostalgia, but I was having this conversation with my mother a couple days ago about TV shows. Both of us had recently gone back and watched old TV shows that we loved back in the day. Mine was Moonlighting. I don't remember what hers was. I think she said Dark Shadows or something. But anyway, and when I watched it, I was like, oh, why did I like that? Like, it just wasn't as good as my memory led me to believe. I had great nostalgia. I loved it at the time, but with a critical eye, I watched it and thought, that's not that great. And I think that if you really watch some of the racing, were the ratings better? Yes, but there was far less competition. Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and YouTube, and running around with your kids, and just like there were a million things that you can watch in addition to just watching a race. The race that put NASCAR on the map in 1979, the reason the ratings were huge, the reason why it put it on the map was everybody was snowed in. There was nothing else to do. There were 3 channels, and one of them had the race on. So people watched it. That just wouldn't happen now. If there's a huge snowstorm and you're not the least bit interested in NASCAR, you're not going to turn on the NASCAR race. You're going to go to Netflix and watch something there. So, and I'm not saying the sport is perfect. It is far from perfect. There are several things that probably need to be improved to keep the older fans, which I think sometimes gets lost a little bit. Not really from NASCAR, but I think in the narrative it gets lost. I've talked to several people in NASCAR, and they are always talking about keeping the older fans. But I think sometimes in the narrative that gets lost. So I think there are things that could be improved there, and I think they've taken huge steps with going to Bowman Gray and going back to North Wilkesboro, which now has a points race. We're still trying to revive the Nashville Fairgrounds, which I've heard they're as close to now to that happening as they've ever been, which is great news for me because I think that's a fantastic little track. Going back to Rockingham, like they are really trying to, get that nostalgia and get those old fans back, while also breaking new markets, right? F1 is incredibly popular. Why would you not try to go to a street course? Why is it popular? Because it's where the people are. And NASCAR should be more successful in that because it's not as expensive to go to a NASCAR race. Is it expensive? Sure, it's very expensive. Is it expensive as a F1 race? not even close. So if you put the cars where the people are, that helps attract new fans to the sport. So I just want everybody, I just get really sad with the rhetoric on social media about the state of NASCAR, because I don't think it's as bad as they make it seem sometimes. I don't think it's as good as sometimes the narrative of some of the national media and the sport makes it either. As in a lot of cases, the truth is usually somewhere in between. So I just want everybody to take a deep breath, really sit back, look, see what you love about those old races. We don't have to go back exactly to that, right? See what you love about those old races. And let's try to get that one thing back. And then also admit that there are some good things going on now as we move forward. I think that would just make everybody happier. It just makes me sad to see everybody just always so riled up and trashing the sport that I love. Thanks for joining me on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.